weary and hopeless fancy. It passed like an April day. By the look and the word and the dreams they stirred, they have stolen my heart away. The tune had been haunting London for weeks past. It was one of countless similar songs published for the benefit of the trolls by a subsection of the music department. The words of these songs were composed without any human intervention whatever, on an instrument known as a versificator.
These 78 words were written on a deathbed by George Orwell, busy writing and dying of tuberculosis. He had a lifelong love of writing in his heart, along with the disease he carried close to it, and it assured him this will be the last novel he ever gets to write. The text he coughed out was his own nightmare that haunted him for his entire life, a world where the truth of the past can be altered to justify the truth of today. History is no solid shape. It is altered again and again and again in front of 1,000 eyeballs. All of them blink away right when it happens. By the time the book came out in 1949, the Cold War was at its height. The book therefore proved popular. It was almost a matter of patriotism in the West to buy it and talk about it, and perhaps even to read parts of it. Although it is, in my opinion, that more people bought it and talk about it than read it. For it is a dreadfully dull, didactic, repetitious, and all but motionless. To summarize then, George Orwell in 1984 was, in my opinion, engaging in a private feud with Stalinism rather than attempting to forecast the future. He did not have the science-fictional knack of foreseeing a possible future, and in actual fact, in almost all cases, the world of 1984 bears no relation to the real world of the 1980s.
Well, back in 1939, you published a story that dealt with the first flight around the moon and back. Frank Borman and his Apollo 8 crew actually carried this mission out in 1968. You placed the story in 1974. How does a science fiction writer feel when something like that happens?
It makes me feel as though I wish I could do it more often. But as a matter of fact, if you go through all my books, you'll find that the number of things I've spoken about that have really come true are very small.
That probably goes for other science fiction writers as well.
Oh, yes. When people talk about how science fiction writers predict the present, it's because they've gone through a large corpus of work and picked out certain things. We can't just predict. There isn't enough story material and straight prediction. We make up futures.
Asimov didn't like the novel. He took no enjoyment from the proven classic. But people did agree with him on one thing, even without knowing of his review or having read the book, as he suggests. It was an attempt to predict, and indeed it proved right, a prophecy for a tomorrow Orwell himself was spared from seeing, rather than a reflection on a horrifying world that he lived in. This was only a great read, it was a big I told you so, the biggest perhaps. Most think he wrote it as a dick measuring contest with the upcoming future, where governments start to bully people out of their rights, something alien to us back in the 1940s. Every generation is selfish enough to think the concept of cruelty was created the day before they were born. But getting fucked in the ass by the government is a classic. It goes back to your dad and his dad and so on. I've yet to see a head of state that has not done anal sex to its subjects. We can't claim surveillance and propaganda as traits unique to our own time. But what is unique to us is their instrument, the one writing music lyrics without any human being even touching a pen or even snapping their fingers. This is not as imaginary in the 2020s as they were in the 1940s when he typed it out. Out of everything people cherry-pick to satiate their intents, this is too detailed, too specific, although not totally close to the truth. In his tale, it ends partly in music, but mostly writing. In the real world, it's invading every corner of life. It's films, it's articles, it's video games, it's porn, not a single thing that we know and love, safe from its infestation. And no matter how dire it gets, it's never enough to those who play these instruments. It's never enough for them. They never get off their soapbox till they convince us good or bad is a thing of the past. Does sincerity even matter when anything can be done in mere seconds? The internet is to our vocabulary what slaughterhouse is to cattle. I remember the not so good old days when Google was fighting a tough corporate battle. A war really, that no one on YouTube itself would have cared about it if they themselves weren't sinking in the same billion-dollar ship. This thing was a new promise, a new age dream. Now anybody could get to be a profitable clown online, except 99% of them would have more money if they turned into dealing crack. But it was a far more attractive occupation. Until everybody was going bankrupt without knowing why. They had their assumptions that some words angered YouTube into grabbing your money for the swear jar. This proved to be right. Paranoia spread among people fast, leading them to cut down on their vocabulary, narrow it down thin, eventually suppressing everyday words as common as kill, replacing it with eliminate and terminate. If these words did not lack enough gut, the word unalive surely did. They say the same thing, but made sure to dress it up as taboo, something confided rather than openly talked about. At first, not everybody accepted these terms, so they could starve to death, or worse, get another job, or just say whatever they want and censor with a noise of choice. Others altered the language of their videos to give the illusion of being blunt, although this was not sudden. At first, it was an inside joke and everybody was on it. They all laughed and poked fun at the new terms of service, thinking they found a loophole by saying the same stuff by saying it in different words. But after a couple of years, nobody was thinking what the word terminate was hiding and why this vague, three-syllable Latin word is any better than the simple one-syllable kill. Yet, nothing was stopping anybody from saying any word they pleased, even the ugly, hateful ones, except a hook in their pockets waiting for them to open their mouths and say something vulgar. But kill is not a vulgar word, only has a vulgar imagery. When a dog is killed, she's shot, stabbed, drowned, murdered by a brute. But when a dog is terminated, there is no brute and there is no imagery, other than a dog disappearing into thin air. It is stripping the life out of that poor dog like it was a bank account that got closed. All these shell words are bland. They are words with a blanket on them and no life in them. However, unalive could make any of these words proud of themselves. It is especially gutless, shaming people into closing themselves inwards and not be open about suicide of all things. These words, like surgical needles, are taking out any impact out of any sentence they enter. Above all, it's just boring. But the danger lies in the intention. It didn't happen to be boring because someone couldn't think of a better sentence. It was a researched and educated choice to be boring. Think of all your favorite treats and snacks, all together swallowed by a blender and churned into a sand-like mix. A clueless child imagines this as perfect. It's everything he enjoys packaged in one meal after all. But the second he takes a spoon, his taste buds will hate him for consuming this willingly. The kind of food with quotation marks next to it that pigs have been manipulated into liking. It is slop. In our case, it is an insult, which suits well for anything out of the thievery mixing jar. A quirky but useful term, often rendered meaningless as an adjective. People throw this around a lot. Top chart music, garbage self-help books, and big video games that hundreds of people drudge away at them for months. Yet the front-running player in the slop economy is none other than the so accessible YouTube. Being a bottomless pit of AI videos to human-made fast food content of some guy parroting headlines for a generous 8 minutes and 1 second, or longer if they wish a better rate. They are frowned upon as low effort and easy to mass produce, two factors that define slop. Many use the term for only describing AI garbage, but to me the only difference between a real, conscious-minded YouTuber doing this and a plagiarism machine is that the human being might be a little sillier and has a higher chance of being a serial child molester because AI companies haven't snatched that part yet. But if these people were to commit the sin of inefficiency just a little bit, to misguide them to put more into whatever they put out, or care enough to hire people to put glitter all over them and make them sparkle, does that slop that comes in a shiny bowl instead of a dirty old bucket now sense the title? No, it's running faster on a treadmill set to the slowest pace. I think low effort and mass produced doesn't reach deep down enough to the root of the insult. A slop is a dish pushed out on a conveyor belt. The one pushing it out, rushing, willing to downsize it to its mashed bones. Because if they fail to fill the bucket in time, their hungry audience would no longer be theirs and goes out starving somewhere else. This mindset is destructive enough to anything that can adapt it. Man or bot doesn't quite matter. Anything they push out is mass-produced because it is low effort, and it is low effort because the idea behind it was lifeless. It was not received, it came out of a lab-like process. Putting any further effort into it is trying to make a mannequin look more human. At best, it's background noise. So background it's fine-tuned to silence. The world wouldn't pay glancing attention if this was televised on every screen. Although the history of forgettable shit goes way back before any screen was invented. But we only remember what we deem as a classic or important, then throw away the rest. What is unique to us though is our frustration with not even mediocre, just a never-ending stream of meaningless content. And we have the right to be angry. The forgettable art of yesterday didn't have its fangs on anything meaningful and dear to us. Those who publish them, instead of being genuine, worry how to wear the skins of human beings and not get caught. It's embarrassing how incompetent these people are. We are disgusted by them, and this disgust is expanding our vocabulary. A slop is not just a funny word, it's useful and its meaning should be kept intact and shouldn't be used to dehumanize, but insult what is already inhuman. To me, it doesn't mean something I don't enjoy. It's not about good or bad, it's a matter of trying, a matter of sincerity that we are in great need of. We blame insincerity on new tools, on new shortcuts, and yet they played their role, and so did before.
It would probably not be beyond human ingenuity to write books by machinery, but a sort of mechanizing process can already be seen at the work in the film and radio, in publicity and propaganda, and in the lower reaches of journalism. The Disney films, for instance, are produced by what is essentially a factory process. The work being done partly mechanically and partly by teams of artists who have to subordinate their individual style. Radio features are commonly written by tired hacks, to whom the subject and the manner of treatment are dictated beforehand. Even so, what they write is merely a kind of raw material to be chopped into shape by producers and censors. So also with the innumerable books and pamphlets commissioned by government departments. Even more machine-like is the production of short stories, serials and poems for the very cheap magazines. Papers such as The Writer abound with advertisements of literary schools, all of them offering you ready-made plots at a few shillings a time. Some, together with the plot, supply the opening and closing sentences of each chapter. Others furnish you with a sort of algebraical formula by the use of which you can construct your plots for yourself. Others offer packs of cards, marked with characters and situations, which have only to be shuffled and dealt in order to produce ingenious stories automatically. It is probably in some such way that the literature of a totalitarian society would be produced, if literature were still felt to be necessary. Imagination, even consciousness, so far as possible, would be eliminated from the process of writing. Books would be planned in their broad lines by bureaucrats and would pass through so many hands that when finished, they would be no more an individual product than a Ford car at the end of the assembly line.